Welcome to Smart Tech Pin Knowledge House. So today, let me take you through the mobile wireless network. So as you know, the mobile wireless network has become so powerful. It has become part of our everyday life. So I hope you remember, we started with the voice, then came SMS, then came data. Now if you look at the 4G LTE network, our dependency on the mobile wireless network has become more and more. So, especially with the introduction of the 4G LTE, which gives you high-speed internet, so you can do a lot of things, like high-definition calling, and you can use high-dense, data-centric games and things like that. So it has become really, really, really part of our everyday life. So So we have seen the evolution of mobile network from 1G to the 5G. So let me show you some of the basic concepts which which might be interesting for you to know how this network evolved. If you look at 1G to 5G, amazing. It's an amazing journey. So technology wise, how it evolved. So in this part one, I will cover the evolution of the mobile wireless networks, how it evolved from 1G to 5G. The part two will cover the key concepts. This is extremely useful for people who are doing their telecommunication majors, especially in their initial studies. This will act as a supplement. This kind of information will act as a supplement information for them, so that they can explore more. The part three will be 5G detailed. So we are hearing about 5G, 5G hitting the market. In the US, 5G is there. Europe, 5G has been launched. In Asia, it is in the initial phase. So I will explain the 5G from a uh, functional and a technical angle, how what 5G can offer us. Part four will be how safe is the mobile wireless networks like 5G. So a lot of things have been going around uh, going around the market regarding the safety issues of 5G. So I'll cover various functional points there. And part five, this will be very much useful for the end users. Part one to four, 1 to 3 might be useful for people who wants to know more about the networks. Part 4 and 5 will be for the end users. Part 5, especially with the introduction of 5G. 5G is completely a new technology. So, um, from an end user point of view, is it going to drain more money from your pocket? Of course, you have to buy a new phone, which can give you this kind of high speed internet data transmission. So you need a good smartphone, so you may have to spend. So we'll cover a few things in part five, which might be very useful for end users. Definitely, part five will make it more interactive, and we'll have a webinar session so that you can ask your common basic questions, which I'll be able to answer. So, what is this G stands for? G stands for generation. So you hear about 1G. I don't know whether you have ever heard about 1G. So that is where the first mobile network evolved. It's called 1G. So G stands for generation. Then came 2G. Then came 2.5G. Then I don't know whether you have heard about 2.75G. Then it was replaced with the 3G. Then 3G also we had a 3.5G, 3.75G. Then came 4G. Then came 4G with an extension called LTE, long-term evolution. Then came the 5G. So we are now at 5G. So the G predominantly stands for generation. So let us talk a little bit more on the wireless network evolution. So as I said, it started with 1G. So 1G was predominantly, it was, it was in the early 80s. So it was predominantly for the voice services. So they built a small network predominantly used for voice, and the bandwidth they used was basically a small bandwidth like 10 megahertz, and the frequency range was about 800 to 900, which is a standard even now. But this was predominantly a test phase, and they used different technologies like the AMS, NMT, and TAX. These were the technologies that were predominantly used, and it had a small range. It used to cover only about 3 to 4 mile radius. So that was a limitation, and there was always a need for more and more services. And predominantly the handset that they used to use was pretty much very bulky and very heavy, and it is evolving. I mean, this is the same for any technology. So initially it will be a little bit heavy, and it might look very odd for you now, but that's how the technology evolves. Then came the 2G. It's called second generation. Here, along with the voice, uh, we introduced SMS and data. Okay, so if you look at the generations 1G to 2G, predominantly the main difference, I mean, a lot of difference, especially SMS and data was introduced. So data was predominantly used for email. Okay, small data, and with a small speed, we can say it uses about 10 kbps. Then with the introduction of a little bit more upgrade, it uses support up to a maximum of 64 kbps. So SMS and data, so it was predominantly like a good, uh, data means, just for email and things like that. So it was basically like a lot of difference. So at this time, the GSMA was introduced. GSMA is nothing but the Global System Mobile Communication, GSM. GSM was basically made as a standard for 2G, and GSM Alliance, it's called GSMA, was introduced. That was a governing body for setting the standards for the network. So in 1G we had standards, but in 2G we came up with the GSM concept. So we standardized uh, the telecom standards for 2G. So that was predominantly governed by the GSMA. And 2G came. Now we have data giving a maximum speed of about 64 kbps. So there was always a need for improving the data rate, especially the data transmission rate. So then came the 2.5G. Okay, let's see, basically like a mid version of uh, the second generation. So we had a 2.5G and 2.75G, and there was a breakthrough, especially for the data transmission. GPRS was introduced. Okay, so GPRS was basically introduced in 2.5G. So that was basically, the technology was basically used to increase the speed. So with the 2.5 and the 2.75G, the speed went all the way up to the 170 kbps. And 2.5G was widely accepted, and it had it had set a lot of standards, and we had prepaid offerings, postpaid offerings. Then came the technologies like the Camel, the CAP versions were introduced. These are all a little bit more technical terms, which will be covered in part two. And then came the next jump, that was basically to increase the speed. So the predominantly this kind of, if you look at the generations, how they change from one generation to next generation, predominantly more focus was given on the data speed. So edge concept was introduced. I don't know whether you remember, like even today, if you go to any rural area, you find the 2.5G and you see a E symbol. E stands for edge. So an edge technology was introduced, and which basically increased the speed up to about 400 to 470 kbps. So 2.75G was evolved, and then people started using little bit more data and through the mobile wireless network, and it was really, I mean, really a technology advancement at that point of time. Then came the 3G. 3G was basically a major, you know, uh, it was a major upgrade. It's called third generation 3G, and here we have introduced the way we introduced GSM. Here we introduced something called UMTS, okay, Universal Mobile Terrestrial Service, or Universal Mobile Telecommunication Service. UMTS was introduced, and here again the main focus was basically voice and SMS was became very standard. Okay, those kind of technologies was always standard, and more focus was given on the data speed. So the UMTS, the speed went all the way up to 380 kbps. And that was a reasonably a good speed. If you compare with the edge definitely gave about 400 to 470, but there was a technology upgrade. So UMTS was basically a technology upgrade, which basically which made the data transmission a little bit more efficient. And in third generation, more value-added services were introduced, like video calling, games, etc. The smartphone concept evolved with 3G. So till 2.5G or 2.75G, it was all conventional phones, which we call as, I mean, I don't know what do you call for those phones now. Yeah, but with the 3G, the concept of the smartphone evolved because of the speed and more value-added services. So that the mobile phone manufacturers, they came up with the much better phones, and which we call it as smartphones. So that was the basically the evolution of 3.5 and 3.75. Yeah, then came the 3.5G and the 3.75G. So in 3.5G again, HSPA and HSPA plus was introduced. Basically, there are two concepts called PDA and HSUPA. So these are basically like new technologies that was introduced, basically basically introduced to solve the data speed. So the speed went all the way up to the 2 Mbps speed. So right from the 400 kbps, it went all the way up to 2 Mbps speed. So that is basically like again a major advancement in terms of the data rate transmission. Then came with 3.5G, 3.75G. We thought, okay, oh man, this is amazing speed. So again, the hunger for the speed was basically the focus. If you really see the evolve, I mean, how the network is evolving, if you see more emphasis is provided for the speed. Then came the 4G. 4G really revolutionized the whole concept. So earlier in 3.5G and 3.75G, people who are owning a smartphone was very very few in number. We used to always say, well, what is the smartphone penetration in India, or what is a smartphone penetration in Asia overall. So we used to calculate and say, okay, oh man, it is 20%, 30%, it's growing, and it's going to up to 40%. But with the 4G network, and after the introduction of the 4G network, it's completely changed. It completely changed the outlook. Now, if you look at, I mean, you don't get a phone which is not a smartphone, because the old conventional phones, like even 3.5G phones, are all gone from the market. Now everyone, irrespective of whether irrespective of any category, if you look at the population, everyone has a smartphone. So that is how the technology really evolved. It evolved with 3.57G. So there was basically like a basically more people started buying smartphones. So smartphone was concept, as I said, was introduced in 3.75G. The 4G, everyone uses a smartphone. You need a smartphone if you want to enjoy the high speed offered by 4G. You need to have a better smartphone. So in 4G, the speed went all the way up to 1 gig, maximum 1 gig, and more and more value-added services, social media tools were introduced, and it became very powerful. Say, for example, the way you use your WhatsApp, you use your WhatsApp for messaging, you use the WhatsApp for video calling. So it was, I mean, this kind of high-speed network can help you to build more and more value-added applications. So people started making voice over data. So when I say voice over data, this will be covered in part two. So basically, whatever calls you are making. So if, say for example, you are making a call using your Facebook or through your WhatsApp, your voice is basically taken over data. That's called voice over data. So network advantage introduced more and more data-centric solutions like the voice over Wi-Fi, then chat messengers with video and audio options. As if you see now, virtually everyone makes a data call. Very few people make conventional voice calls. If you're driving or if you're moving around, you try to use a data call. You're always trying to use a data call. Even for a domestic call or maybe for an international call, you try to use voice over data. So voice over data has become really very powerful. When voice over data became so powerful, even the mobile network carriers, they are spending millions and millions of dollars, for upgrades. Not million, could be billions, in the coming years. So they are spending a lot of money for the network upgrades. But at the same time, one good thing about the network, the evolution is, even though it starts with, if you look at 2.5G or 2.75G, a mobile connection was so expensive. But with the technology evolution, these kind of services also became very cheaper and more affordable for the end users. The only area where people will have to evolve with the network means they may have to change the phone. So when the people who are using the 2.5G, they all upgraded with a new phone to support 3G. And from 3G to 3.5G and 3.75G, they again spend more money on smartphones so that they can use the network more efficiently. With the 4G, again, they upgraded their handsets to 4G network so that they can enjoy the speed. So speed is the main one of the main factor in this network evolution. And from the 4G, it went all the way up to 4G LTE. It's called long-term evolution. We'll discuss this in part two. And then came the 4G LTE advanced, and that this is how the 4G also evolved, and it went all the way up to 1 gig. So it gives you 100 Mbps all the way. It goes up to 1 gig. So it gave you good speed. So 100 Mbps to me, it's an amazing speed. So you can consider do anything. You can do a teleconferencing, you can do a video calling, you can have a office meeting all over 100 Mbps. Even let's not talk about 100 Mbps. Let's talk about 50 Mbps. If you get a quality line with a 50 Mbps, you can do many things. Yeah, but 4G, if you look at high definition calling and all those things, so I think you need a 4G LTE connection, but it gives you more speed and more user experience. Then comes 5G. Now we are at the doorstep of 5G. 5G is already introduced in the US. So 5G gives you very high speed data. So that if you look at the technology upgrade and the enhancement that is happening, it's amazing. I've been working in this telecom industry for the last, I don't know, it's more than 40, 15, 16 years. So I am riding with this technology from 2.5G, 2G to 2.5G. I've been riding with this technology. I've been working in this domain. I have seen how it evolved all the way to 3G and 3.5G, 3.75G, how it got evolved to 4G and it went into 4G LTE, then 4G LTE advanced. Now I'm in 5G now. So I have seen all the technology upgrades. So so 4G to 5G technology upgrade is amazing. There are a lot of things that got upgraded. The components that we use in 4G LTE is no more applicable for 5G. For 5G, it's completely different. So that's how the technology really evolved. Even from 3.5G to 4G, uh, there was a little bit of enhancement. But 4G to 5G, it's an expensive upgrade, new set of elements. So we'll cover more about the 5G network in the coming sessions. So I'll take you through various concepts of 5G. So I'll try to make it more functional, and also maybe I'll cover few sessions which will be little bit technically oriented. This might be very useful for people who are with telecommunication technology. So this is how the wireless network evolved. So the 5G, again coming back to 5G, 5G uses the millimeter wave. If you look at 2.5G to 4G LTE, so it uses frequency range from 600, not 600, you can say 700 to 2500 megahertz. So that's a frequency used by the networks from 2.5G to the 4G. But 5G uses completely a different frequency band. It uses 28 and 39 gigahertz. It's gigahertz, not megahertz. Gigahertz. So anything above 10 gigahertz, I used to say, oh man, it is going to be, it is going to be too much for the too much for the network. So yeah, but 5G uses 28 and it uses 39 gigahertz frequency, and it also can use 600 megahertz 71 band. Okay, I'll talk about these bands, frequencies, and all those things in very detail in the part 2. Okay, so this is just an introduction. This is just to give you how we evolved from 1G to 5G. I hope this session was useful for you. So this was basically taking you from 1G to 5G, and people who don't know how the network evolved. This I'm sure that this might have been useful for them, and it is a journey, So I've been in this journey for the last 18 years, as I said. So it's a continuous journey, and it is more learning for me too, So you have to learn. Maybe tomorrow 6G may come with some another bigger upgrade. You have to upgrade. You have to learn, So that is how it goes. And thank you so much for watching this. And if you have any queries, please email me at smarttechpin@gmail.com. And also, I see a lot of views. Okay, so let's make this as a technology house. Let's make it interactive. Please comment. Whatever queries you have, please make a comment, and let's make it more interactive. And the first webinar sessions for the agriculture domain was really successful, and we'll be doing more and more webinars in the future. And I'm just planning for one session with a company called Woodpecker, and there'll be a webinar sessions. We'll be talking to the CTO, of that company, and he'll be explaining his experience in the IoT agricultural domain. Thank you. Similarly, we'll cover a little bit more on telecommunication. Also, we'll try to bring more and more people into this for this active discussion so that they'll share their experience, and it'll be very useful for you. Thank you once again for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll be in touch for the next sessions. Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.